Hello, viewers. Welcome to today's lecture on one of the major global environmental problems which has attracted attention of environmentalists, policymakers, the public, and NGOs, and that problem is desertification. Now, desertification is land degradation, which is happening in arid, semi arid, and dry subhumid areas. And this is mainly due to pervasive dryness, that is, never ending dryness. Though African continent is the most affected by desertification, but any region with an arid and semi-arid climate is prone to it. So the reason these areas are prone to the desertification problem is because they have excessive heat and there is variable precipitation. It's not always that they get rainfall. Even the rainfall that they get may not be very heavy. So that is the reason such areas which have semi-arid and semi-arid climates are the ones which are most prone to this kind of a problem or this kind of an environmental issue, that is desertification. Usually these areas are the ones which are found straddling the equator, that is the areas in Asia, Africa, South America, North America, Australia. All of these regions which are around the equator are the ones which are having this kind of an arid and semi-arid climate. So as per the 2018-19 report, 97.84 million hectares in India was degraded land, or which was starting the process of desertification, mainly seen in Rajasthan, Maharashtra, and Gujarat. These are the states in India which are having maximum chances of desertification. They have already started, the process of desertification has already started in these states. So the government of India has set up a national afforestation and eco development board, and that board has started the Green India mission. But despite that, this problem is very real in India and even globally. So the causes for this desertification are mainly climate change, land mismanagement, and unsustainable freshwater use. So let us look at each of these reasons or causes in detail. Now, climate change involves mainly global warming. So, global warming is, again, like the name says, like the term says, it's global warming. It's a global issue. And global warming has led to a decline in rainfall and difference in the precipitation patterns. That is, changes in the precipitation patterns. This is one of the major reasons for desertification to occur. The second one, the second you can say the major reason is land mismanagement. This includes deforestation, it includes overgrazing. So the deforestation affects the water cycle, like we have already spoken about. So as you can see over here, this is deforested area in Ethiopia. So deforestation, overgrazing, like shown over here, or over cultivation of crops when you do unsustainable agriculture. That is, this has been the problem in the Marathwada region of Maharashtra, like the areas of Aurangabad, Latur, Nanded. This is the problem. That is, the people have shifted from arid crops which are meant for growing in such arid areas. They have shifted from those crops to either bt cotton or soya bean, crops which need a lot of, which are taking in a lot of the water, and that has caused the desertification in these areas. So unsustainable agriculture is also one example of land mismanagement. It can also be because of overgrazing and excessive livestock farming. So there is a demand, very high demand for meat in Europe, and that meat has come from clearing forests in South America. So in South America, desertification is happening because people in Europe want to eat meat, and that meat is being imported from this South American regions. So there are several areas in India also where there is desertification happening, and the reasons for that, the major drivers for that are the land mismanagement strategies like overgrazing or deforestation, excessive livestock farming, and unsustainable agriculture. Apart from this, there is also unsustainable freshwater use, which is attributing to desertification. So, droughts are very common in these areas, but if we manage the land well, we can recover from the drought. But what is happening is the continuous land abuse and the freshwater abuse. All the freshwater is being used for irrigation, it is being used for the excessive population which is staying in that area, and due to this, we are adding on to the land degradation, or we are adding on to the desertification. Now this has very severe impact on the livelihood of people. The first impact is that it reduces the vegetation cover. So when there is no vegetation, that leads to a barren land, it leads to a bare land which is devoid of vegetation. That creates another ripple of effects. The second problem is soil salinization. This is mainly seen in irrigated areas where, due to the evaporation of all the water that is being used for irrigation, so the salts start depositing in the soil, which leads to an increased salinity in the soil, that is referred to as soil salinization. And when there is an increased salinity, again the vegetation is unable to grow over there, or that leads to a loss of biodiversity. So when we say loss of biodiversity, that includes both vegetation, plant cover, as well as animal insects. So all the flora and fauna of a particular region start dying out, they start moving away from there, they start migrating from there, and that region itself becomes completely barren of vegetation as well as animals and other fauna. This leads to hunger and poverty. Now what happens is, when the people there don't have any water, they don't have any modes of living, the no plant is growing there, animals are unable to be sustained over there, that eventually leads to poverty and hunger issues. It also leads to an increased occurrence of dust storms or sandstorms. And these sandstorms or dust storms, as shown in the picture here, are the very important factor for respiratory disorders and diseases. So these sandstorms can cause a lot of respiratory issues. It can lead to bronchitis, it can lead to other respiratory diseases. It can also disrupt the infrastructure. So it can disrupt, or break down or destroy the solar panels installed in that area. It can interfere with the wind turbines, it can disrupt the roads, the buildings. So there's a lot of destruction to the infrastructure, as well as respiratory issues occurring due to the sandstorms. And these sandstorms have been on an increase in the Middle East. It has been seen that in the Middle East there have been more and more sandstorms that have been occurring. The frequency has increased. What is shown over here, this picture is a Habub sandstorm or a dust storm that is seen over the mountains of Arizona in 2018. And this is a picture from the archives. This is a large dust cloud that has started gathering in Colorado in US in 1936. So in the 1930s, there was a phenomenon called as dust bowl. Dust bowl was the occurrence of severe dust storms frequently occurring across different states of the US, across actually the region called as the Great Plains of the US, due to their damaged ecology. What happened there was, these states, that is Texas, Dakota, Arizona, etc., all of these states had grasslands, prairies. But due to severe drought and due to excessive farming, overplowing, overgrazing, because there was grassland, there was overgrazing happening, that completely destroyed the ecology of that area, and it led to the excessive frequency of dust storms happening in that area. And that phenomenon is called as the dust bowl. So this picture is of a dust bowl, and it eventually died out when the water started coming back, when the agricultural practices reduced, when the grazing reduced. Eventually this dust bowl or this occurrence stopped, and people were able to survive over there. So this was the impact. This shows you the impact of desertification on the health of animals, on the health of plants, and generally the infrastructure. So coming to the control strategies, there are methods to control it, and the first and the most important method of controlling desertification is good management practices of land as well as water. Using land resources and water resources in a sustainable manner is the foremost important method of control of desertification. The second method of controlling desertification is improving the vegetation cover. So not only protecting the vegetation cover, what is already there, but in fact, you can even go for developing more vegetation cover so that erosion is avoided and land is not exposed, soil is not exposed to become a desert. The third practice can be involving or starting new alternative farming and industrial techniques such as those which are less demanding on the local land resource, local natural resources. Using, for one example, is using dry land aquaculture for production of fish. So coming up with alternate strategies and techniques for the areas that are prone to desertification. And lastly, developing specified pasture lands so that these areas which are susceptible, from them the pressure is released and the people use their livestock or use these developed pasture lands or grazing lands for their livestock. So these are certain methods or strategies for control of desertification. What is shown over here is the Great Green Wall. Now, this is a measure that has been taken. This is a initiative that has been started by 11 countries in the Sahel Sahara region of Africa. So what they have done is they understood that Africa is very prone to desertification, and the development there was happening in such an unsustainable manner that the land was getting desertified. More and more land was undergoing desertification. So the scientists and the policymakers over there started a lot of hard work for restoring the land which was actually once rich with biodiversity and vegetation. The Sahara region was having a lot of biodiversity. So they started this initiative wherein 11 countries, starting from Djibouti here till Senegal over this end. So from the east to the west coast, 11 countries joined to combat the land degradation and restore the native plant life in that landscape. What they have done is they have started to build this green cover or line of trees that can regenerate the parkland. So that is why this is called as the Great Green Wall Initiative. It is still underway, but it started in 2007 and it has shown quite a lot of success, wherein the plant cover is slowly getting restored in this entire region. So these are some of the control mechanisms or the control strategies by which we can combat desertification and ensure that land degradation does not occur further. I hope this was useful to you. See you all for the next lecture. Thank you.